Well, hello. I am so happy to have with me two wonderful, amazing women who I happen to be fortunate enough to call friends. But what they do is so essential to what happens in our communities. And I want to get our conversation started. First of all, by introducing them and what they do, and we'll just kind of get into the meat of it. I'd like you first to say hello to Lauren. And Lauren, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Hi, Miss D. It's so nice to be here with you today, and also with our other dear friend that is here. I am truly honored to be with both of you beautiful ladies. I am a social worker, and so I work professionally as a social worker. And social workers have a code of ethics that we uphold, and the I actually work with the National Association of Social Workers. And so the three responsibilities of that are to strengthen and unify the profession, promote the development of social work practice, but also very importantly during these times, advance sound social policies. And so as social workers, we are committed to upholding social justice.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to go to our next friend, and that is Gwen. Gwen, can you tell people what your life work has been involved in?
Yes. Well, it I went down a path that not many would choose. I started in corporate and ended up in the union movement. I consider myself a labor union activist. I believe that it was something that I was destined for. I worked for the UAW on the president's staff for nearly 20 years. And the experience was one that I will never regret and wouldn't change for the entire world. I mean, it was profoundly, um, it was so profoundly important to me, not just because of the fact that my mother and my father and many members of my family are part of the UAW or were part of the UAW, as it may be. It was also because I wanted to do something that affected greater change, good change,
Mm-hmm.
the most amount of people. How do I do that? I knew I wasn't a politician. This was my way of being able
Okay.
to be a part of that. So um, I continue to support my union family, and I continue to support social justice. So,
Awesome. And, I heard you say, Gwen, that you kind of followed in your mother and in your parents' footsteps. So they were like part of the UAW. Can you tell us a little bit, because this is airing in Black during February Black History
yeah.
Month, and we've had many conversations around this. How would you tell people about the significance of the labor movement and civil rights movement, that interconnectedness?
Yeah.
Can you kind of, give us a little insight into that?
Yeah. I am grateful that my mother had a union job. Um, Prior to going to work for General Motors, she was a scrub tech at U of M. And I don't believe that there was so much of a union there as what she found at the UAW at that time. But both my mother and father are from Mississippi. And my grandfather sent my mother up north to Michigan because he said, they're going to kill you. Because she was profoundly strong in her belief of being treated fairly and fighting for what was right and standing on principle. So, regardless of the wonderful work that she was able to do at U of M, in the microbiology lab and in the surgical room, she accepted um, that this union job provided stability, security, benefits, better pay, definitely better pay at that time, and even now I'm sure, and also gave her back her opportunity to have a voice, and to
Mm-hmm.
be, speak loudly with that voice, and so it was always fortunate for me to be in a family where politics was not something that we didn't talk about. It was something definitely talked about at our dinner table, and just being on the side of right, being on the side of standing up for people who could not stand up for themselves, or standing up for yourself, which is really
Mm-hmm.
important. We advocate for people um, all the time, but a lot of times we think that advocating for ourselves is a selfish thing, and it really isn't. It is our name right to stand up for ourselves and demand better. So it was beautiful. It was something that when I had the opportunity to work for the UAW, it was one of her proudest moments. And for me, it was like coming home, because the sense of family, the sense of unity, the sense of community, and the sense of we're all working towards this bigger goal,
Mm-hmm.
um, was there. And that was what I felt in my own home growing up. So
Awesome. So, Lauren, again, I know a little bit of your background, but can you just tell us a little bit about what guided you toward social work,
yeah.
and a little bit more about what you do in the community in which you live under that umbrella of, services?
So, similar to Gwen, I worked in corporate America for many, many years.
Mhm.
My undergraduate degree is not in social work. It is in mass communications and public relations. And then I have what what I refer to as my mid-career crisis,
Mm-hmm.
where I had to decide if I was going to continue to work in corporate America. And when I turned 65, there would be a conference room with my colleagues and a cake. And they would tell me happy retirement, and I would go on my way, right?
Right.
Or would I go do something else? And I was here since it is Black History Month. Although, of course, we know Black history is every
365.
Right.
but one of Dr. Martin Luther King's quotes that motivate me is life's most urgent and persistent question is, what are you doing for others?
Yeah.
And so at that time in my mid career crisis, I was looking at other jobs that were working towards advocacy and empowerment for other people. And I realized that I could use my voice, which was what I had been doing, but instead of it being for the end of the day for the corporation,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe I could use my voice towards advocating towards others.
Okay.
And so that's when it became put up or shut up time, and I pursued my master's degree in social work, and I've been doing that now for the last 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. Can you tell me a moment in time, around something that really resonated with you and let you know, like, this is what I was meant to do? As Gwen has said, like, in your social work, describe something that you did, an initiative or something that you had a part of that really made you feel like this is where I belong.
I would say that that came several years ago. I was working with an organization that was helping young people that are transitioning out of the foster care system.
Hmm.
So you're talking about, teenagers that are going to end up at age 18 be let go with not many safety nets, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that was an issue for them was that they were not able to get driver's licenses. And not being able to get a driver's license because they are essentially considered in this state, they were considered wards of the state. So even in the foster care system, even if they had kind, wonderful foster parents that wanted to help them get a driver's license, they were not allowed to put them on their insurance because they were still considered a ward of the state.
Wow.
And in my state, the state of North Carolina did not want to take on the liability
Mm-hmm.
or the expense of where are we going to put these young people that are in the out of home system onto some type of insurance plan.
Right.
So this caused a major issue, as you can imagine, because young people would want to have be able to drive so that they could go to part-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Young people would want to be able to drive so that when they turned 18, if they wanted to go to work full time, if they wanted to go to community college, if they had gotten into a full time college, I mean, all kinds of things. As you know, not having transportation is quite the barrier. And
Mm-hmm.
so, this organization, the young people, um, went to the General Assembly. They used their own voices. They spoke out in committee meetings. They testified to elected leaders in North Carolina about what a hindrance this was and how much they needed a license. And so eventually, policy was changed. And so now, young people that are in foster care in North Carolina are able to get a driver's license, and their foster parents, if they want to, are able to put that young person, onto insurance. And so that was a moment where I
That's
realized the power of the voice and advocacy can make
Yeah.
very real differences in people's lives.
that's awesome. So, Gwen, to you, during your period working for the UAW, and as you said, you worked for the president, is
Mm-hmm.
there a moment that stands out for you where you said, "This is where I belong. I'm so honored to be able to do what I'm doing, and I know it's making a difference."
You know, there were many. And I would say, now, let me say the first one. The first one was going up to Black Lake, which was, which is, our education center. It's a convention center. Any member is able to come. Actually, the public is able to come and it's beautiful. It was designed with Walter Reuther and his wife, and the architecture is just amazing. But what happened? What was profound was it was an all hands on deck. It was a president's staff meeting. So every department, every representative that fell under the president of the UAW, who was Steve Yokich at the time, um, was, we had to meet together once a year. And what you listen to is you get in these different conference rooms, and you listen to other departments give out the reports. And one struck me so deeply, and it was from the organizing department. And when they talked about organizing in the South, and also, the teachers at the universities, this, the teachers' assistants and everything, and just the hearing the stories about why it was necessary and how hard these people worked to fight to gain their union, to gain some rights, and to gain a better life and for themselves. I was so moved. And I remember walking out, and it's a beautiful area, and you're looking at the water, which is Black Lake, with all the trees and the nature around. And there's an eternal flame set up for Walter Reuther, after his tragic death. And I was just moved nearly to tears. And I remember my director came over to me and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So what do you think so far?" I said, and as I just said earlier, I said, "It feels like coming home." I was so grateful to be a part of something so big. And
Uh
we
huh.
knew that every battle wasn't going to be won, but we knew that we were all going to be there together doing it. And that to me was just, that was a new feeling. It was so different from leaving corporate America to coming to the union, where you knew you had somebody else to lock arms with and be in this fight. You were not going to be alone. No one was going to leave you behind. They were going to drag you with them. Okay. So
Right.
it was that for
Together.
me. Yes.
Right. And community. You know,
Community.
yeah. So can you, um, Lauren, going back to you, what kinds of profound differences or impact do social workers make, in your opinion, in your community or a community?
So I think it's important to know that one of the things that are different from social workers than other helping professions is one piece of it that's in our code of ethics. So there are many, many important helping professions, right, that we have. We have counselors, we have psychologists, psychiatrists, therapy, different names, and all of these people that are here to help others
Mm-hmm.
matter and are
Mm-hmm.
important, right? But social workers have within our code of ethics the social justice component. And
Mm-hmm.
that makes us very different than other helping organizations or helping professions because they don't have that social justice piece in their code of ethics that we are up to we are upheld to hold that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that one particular piece, if you don't mind, Miss D, if I could read it, would that be okay?
Absolutely. No.
So it says that under social and political action,
Mm-hmm.
that social workers should act to prevent and eliminate domination of, exploitation of, and discrimination against any person, group, or class on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, age, marital status, political belief, religion, immigration status, or mental or physical ability. So,
Mm-hmm.
in that thing, I like to say, social worker is the only profession that goes from the womb
Right.
when people are receiving prenatal care
Mm-hmm.
to the tomb. And I mean that respectfully because there are
Mm-hmm.
hospice social workers that go back and
Mm-hmm.
provide counseling and support services and resources to family members who are grieving after a loved one has passed away. And then the most important part, again, is that social justice piece.
Mm-hmm.
That means beyond providing education, resources, information, things like that, we are always, every social worker is upheld to that code, that we are working to make sure that anyone, there's no group of person, as you all both heard, that's left out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's no person left out of that, that we are not supposed to be ensuring that they have the access to their rights, their dignity as a human, freedoms, and justice as a person.
Right.
And so
Just
that's what we do.
uplifting humanity,
Yes.
and I love that.
Me
And
too.
so kind of the same question to you, Gwen. In your community,
Mm-hmm.
um, how do you see, and this can be, like from a historical perspective, from a current, like where we are perspective, but I want to get to that with both of these. I know you said you still support your local unions. What kinds of things would you say are being done in your community or communities across the country that are being impacted, are being improved by the labor movement, by unions?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have to recognize, we have to acknowledge the fact that in order for the union to even be formed, it had to be a political force.
Mm-hmm.
So, by understanding that, we have to make sure that we give, give them their due for being a force to be reckoned with within any political arena. And
Mm-hmm.
that means that they had to demand better for workers and their families while working with bipartisan politicians and legislators, and hoping, and with the goal being at the end for that legislation to benefit, understanding that everything is in increments. So they didn't just work in the workplaces. Sometimes it takes both, and sometimes it takes both simultaneously. So, most recently, or I would say that, campaigning for politicians who want to support workers, not just union workers,
Hmm.
all workers, to
See,
help.
that's the thing
Yeah,
because
yeah,
people don't recognize
yeah,
that unions don't just do that work for the people in them. Like
yeah,
what they do has a broader impact on all workers.
yeah. One of the first things that they really emphasized for me was that a lot of times, while some demands may be seen like, well, why would someone need that? It was because once you establish it within these union contracts, other people who are working in whatever industry are looking and saying, well, why do they get it and we don't get it? So
Hmm.
it raises the standards for everyone, you know. I remember working here in Michigan with our union while we were negotiating benefits for same sex partners.
Hmm.
Hearing these tragic stories about these people have been partners for lifetime, 20 years or more, or even 11 years, even 2 years, didn't matter. And then some catastrophic illness would come where this person had good insurance because they worked for the union or in a union workplace, and the other person did not, but there was no way to provide that crossover of assistance to the partner. So it was something that the UAW really stood their ground on, and not everybody was happy, but it was something that ended up changing the trajectory, because it became so commonplace that everyone kind of forgot this little thing that happened in Michigan that made it, that traveled from contract to contract around the United States and made it so commonplace that now everybody was able, or most people, or some people, more people than before, were able to take part in having these type of benefits. So it well, sure, yeah, would it doesn't make sense for everyone to be unionized, but yeah, we want as many unions in place as we can, because it does raise the standards, and that's the goal, to raise the standards,
Yes.
build
And I'm
stronger communities.
right. I mean, and I think sometimes a lot of people just forget the basic, like people who work don't recognize that the 40-hour work week that is the standard in our country came
Absolutely.
about
Because of the
because of
union.
unions,
Yeah.
the
Children
labor.
outside of the workplace, or outside of these dangerous uh, workplaces, is because of the union. Workplace safety, where workers were dying literally every day, it was
Mm.
commonplace, is because of the union. I mean, can I just tell you one quick story?
Sure.
Okay, there was I remember a labor contract that we were doing, and it was it was one of the Detroit Three. And one of the biggest demands, and one of the demands that they were like, we will not move on this. And it was cleaning bird feces off of the roof.
Mm.
And, you kind of looked at it and it's like, what is this? But what it was there was a lot of ventilation that traveled down into the facility from the roof, and what they were finding was people were getting extremely ill
Mm.
Mm.
because it is bacteria. It's not just feces, it's not just, oh, I don't want to step on bird poop. It was the fact that you are making people more unhealthy, which is causing people to lose time at work, which is causing people to have unnecessary health risks and injuries, which is just diminishing the morale and affecting productivity and efficiency. And if you just cleaned the bird poop, you would improve it so significantly. And it was just something. These are the types of standards that the UAW has had to fight for in different workplaces, which sound random to other people, may not mean a lot to them, but once put in place, improves everything. Then they're not carrying germs home to their family. They're not. There's
Right.
so much. It all builds upon it.
Right.
It yeah.
When one sector of society does better,
We
another sector or society as a whole does better. So
absolutely.
I appreciate both of you ladies so much. I value the relationship, the friendship that we have, but I really appreciate the life work that you have been involved in and how important and essential it is really to us building healthy, thriving communities. And that's a big thing for me because, I always feel that communities are made up of nothing more than individual people. They're only as good as the people that are in them and the work that they put into them. And that our country basically is a million little communities. And that when we make those communities better, we make our country better and stronger. So I love to understand and to let people know the people in our communities who are doing their part. And I
Mm-hmm.
love the part that you guys play in your communities in doing what you do. I know how good you are at it. I know how passionate you are at it. And, we're going to start to kind of wrap up. But since it's Black History Month, I
Yeah.
know that both of you know that we love highlighting the contributions of our African American ancestors, here or living, dead or, still here with us,
Yeah.
who have made impact in so many areas of our lives and our communities. So I'm going to start first with Lauren, and I'd like her to give us a little, some highlights around people, African Americans within the social work industry that she's aware of that have inspired her. And then we'll go to you, Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Miss D. So there are many, many Black social workers to speak of course, because as it is with any social movement, civil
Mm-hmm.
rights movement, racial justice movement, women's movement, humanitarian movement, we all know, we should know that Black Americans are always at the forefront and are the trailblazers of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to just highlight two very quickly. The most significant piece of legislation ever passed in our country, which is the Social Work Reinvestment Act. It's the most comprehensive piece of federal legislation created to address the significant workforce challenges facing the profession of social work, was named after these two incredible African Americans, and that is the Dorothy Height and Whitney M. Young
Yes.
Social Work
Uh-huh.
Reinvestment Act. And so, Whitney M. Young Jr. So, very briefly, just quickly, Whitney Young, in 1961, he was a 39-year-old social worker that decided, interestingly enough, that corporate America needed to be integrated, and worked very hard to and spoke out against and advocated for the fact that corporate America was all white boardrooms, all white CEOs,
Mm-hmm.
and that needed to change. Mr. Young was also a speaker at the March on Washington in 1963. There is, video evidence of him there at the historic March of Washington in 1963. So, an amazing Black social worker. And then Dorothy Height. Many of us know that name for a lot of different reasons.
Absolutely.
But when I speak of her, and what an inspiration she is to me personally, I like to share her story with social work students when we're in the classroom and speaking with upcoming social work students. And she is a pioneer. You both
Hmm.
know of the civil rights movement, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't know about her is that she was also a social worker who studied at the New York University School of Social Worker, and that her entire career, what she did for work, was as a caseworker for the New York City Child Welfare Department, one of the most challenging social
Mm.
work
Mm-hmm.
positions you can have, which is to be in the child welfare part of social work.
Yeah.
Her entire career. And I'll leave with a quote of hers that is very inspiring to me personally and to our profession. And that is from Dr. Dorothy Height, who also has a Black Heritage Forever stamp from the U.S.
Mm.
Postal Service after her. Um, she said, "We have to improve life, not just for those who have the most skills and those who know how to manipulate the system, but also for and with those who often have so much to give, but never get the opportunity."
Mhm.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much to truly amazing trailblazers that we can be thankful for the work that they did and the progress that they made for all of us, for our community, but for, I feel like our country with the
Yeah.
work that they established. So, Gwen,
Yeah.
same question to you in the labor movement.
In the labor movement, it's so funny because it always strikes me as just kismet that Lauren and I have so much integration in what we have done. And when
Mm-hmm.
she first started talking about Dorothy Height, I was like, girl, because the union and the UAW in particular loves the legacy and heritage of Dorothy Height. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you for telling us about that, for sharing that with people. And I know that when people think of civil rights and the union, our minds go straight to a Philip Randolph, of course, right? Of course, that's who it's going to go to because that's the story that you recognize. That's the story that you know as being um, the one that brought the faces of Black people in the labor movement to the forefront. But
Mm-hmm.
I am always so I always feel like the UAW gets cheated. So I'm going to tell you about the UAW, and I've shared this before, but I'm going to share it again. Um, Walter Reuther and Martin Luther King Jr. were very good friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mean like friends like, hey, how you doing? And they spoke on the phone. I mean like they visited each other's homes. He had an office in the UAW's. Sorry, I have a fur baby coming in. The Walter Reuther made sure that Martin Luther King had an office at the Solidarity House, which is the UAW's headquarters, for him to work
Wow.
out of. Because one of the things that they wanted to make sure of is prior to the March on Washington, they did a March of Freedom in Detroit, March to Freedom. Okay, and it was the practice. They wanted to make sure that people would come. Would they come? Would they be peaceful? Could we manage it? And so the first or the pre march to Washington happened downtown Detroit, from
Wow.
Solidarity House all the way down Woodward, um, Shoulders Arena, and the Big Fist. And just a side note, that big fist that is stands, in Detroit, that is so iconic that everybody sees, it actually took the place of a whipping post.
Wow.
Yes, yes, yes,
Hmm.
yes, it did. Yes, it did. There is a history there, and so that fist is it is significant. It is the grit of Detroit and how we will stand and we will fight. And part of that is namely because of the UAW's large presence in Detroit, in the Detroit Three, and many other businesses around Michigan and definitely the community. So, I really want to say that the civil rights movement, the March on Washington, could not have been as successful without labor unions, and definitely without Walter Luther and the friendship that he had and respect that he had for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And that is something that I will never stop preaching about until people start recognizing it and taking it and understanding that we are not, we being union members, we being the union, are not simply out for ourselves. We are not simply out for only our membership. We are about fighting for social justice wherever we are needed. And we come to the call.
I love you've told me aspects of that story,
Yeah.
but every time you tell it, there's a new little
I know,
jewel.
right?
And I love that. And I just really, like I said, we are friends, but I love that the work that my friends do, as you said, they complement each other. They kind of intersect, and I think it speaks to the people that you are. And I am blessed to know you. I can't thank you both enough for the support that you have given me in advocacy arena and the work that I do. And I am grateful that you took a little time out to come and share with a wider audience the gifts that you bring to your community. And I just want to thank you for hanging out here with me today and helping to amplify your work and the work, around your professions, the social work and the labor movement, because I do think that they're such an integral part of our society, but I think sometimes people just kind of take them for granted. They do all these amazing things, and sometimes maybe people
Yeah.
don't recognize where that work comes from. So I
Yeah.
always like that I have these two wonderful people in my life who can help to educate people about it. And I just would like to end with both of you, maybe just sharing some thoughts about your profession or about advocacy arena or whatever, just some closing thoughts to wind our conversation up today.
Well, first,
No, Lord. No, I'm sorry. You're going to have to get the last word. I
okay,
cannot
okay.
follow
I
that.
defer. I
Gwen
It's
defer.
calls
hard to follow
dibs.
this one.
Gwen
I'm so
clearly has
sorry.
called dibs, so I got to be quiet.
You got,
Gwen has
you got
clearly
to, you
called
got to, you
dibs.
got to close, honey, because you're the closer. I'm so sorry. You do it so well. But I just wanted to say that, being a part of the advocacy arena and the community has been rewarding in a way that I don't think I can truly express. Um, I came upon it during a time when I really needed it. Thank you, Miss D. Thank you for seeing something that was worthy to build this friendship and mentorship. And Lauren, already, I said I'm going to be her friend. I did not care if I had to be a stalker. I did not care because I felt like that was something that was kind of missing after I had to leave the workforce due to health reasons. And I needed strong women who were still advocating, still fighting in whatever capacity they could to demand democracy and freedom and justice wherever they could, whenever they could. And just being able to be in the orbit of you two has been significant to me. And I want to say that my high quality product, the Misty, my sweatshirt. I got it on today in honor of you. I usually wear political gear. And I was like, oh, which sweatshirt am I going to? I was like, girl, it is no hold, no, there should be no choice here other than my good trouble. Because I love making good trouble with you ladies. And I am so grateful for you and I love you.
Thank you. So, Lauren, closing thoughts, my dear?
Well, first, I also want to make sure that everyone that watches is able to see my awesome, amazing Advocacy Arena shirt that comes from Miss D's storefront. And
Mm,
I encourage people to support you in that way. Gwen just showed her awesome Good Trouble sweatshirt. This is my awesome Advocacy Arena shirt that I love so much. And so we hope that people will support you in that way because of all the good work that
mm,
you have done for years to
mhm,
ensure that voices like
mm,
Gwen's and like mine
mhm.
are not only just heard, but are amplified.
Yes.
And that is so important during a time like now when many people's voices are being silenced or it's harder to hear people's voices. So thank you so much for what you do. I also want to thank you for always letting me share more about what it means to be a social worker because sadly, there is a stereotype
Mhm,
because of the media,
mhm,
because of movies, that all social workers do is come and take your children from your home.
Mm,
And that is the narrative that is there. I even, many times a month am asked and or questioned about that in regards to is that what you do, that is the profession, and it's just simply not true. That is a
mhm,
very tiny unfortunate aspect of a part of child welfare that we wish didn't occur.
mhm.
I wish didn't occur, and we're not going to get into that today. But
Right.
the majority of my work is around social justice, where I am literally inside the North Carolina General Assembly with elected leaders working to advocate for legislation that centers equity, racial, and social justice for Black people and other people of color, where I am in there advocating to protect LGBTQ plus rights, where I am working to oppose efforts to restrict abortion access or reproductive health care. Because, like I said, social workers are a little bit different because of that social justice piece. And so I thank you for you letting me take time here during
Mm,
Black History Month for us to be able to amplify social work heroes, civil rights heroes, such as Whitney Young Jr. and the Honorable Dorothy Height. And
mhm.
as always, I am blessed beyond measure as a white woman to be able to share space during living Black history
Amen.
with Gwen and you, Miss D. So thank you so much for this time.
aw, thank you both so very much. I am, again, like I said, eternally grateful that I met you guys, and I really feel blessed to have you as friends. And I just, I know that you are each going to continue, even though Gwen, you're retired, you're still an advocate, very strong, doing so many things. And I'm always interested, and I'm always going to amplify the work that you do because I know that it is worthy and I know that it's very impactful, not just for yourself, but
Mhm.
for a community at large, because that's the kind of people that you are. So I just want to thank you both very much. Thank you for listening to Connections and Conversations. This is one of many wonderful interviews that we bring to you to help connect you to a larger community of advocates and changemakers across the country. You'll get a glimpse into the various ways people are making an impact in their communities. My hope is that it will inspire you to get engaged in some small way as well. We can't all do everything, but at this moment in history, we can all do something. What are you doing? One of the things you can do is to continue to listen, subscribe, and share this Advocacy Arena podcast. You can also join and support the growing grassroots Advocacy Arena community in other ways. Join our weekly live chats hosted on Spoutable every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to our Substack to get great articles on important topics, and exclusive access to extended interview conversations. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We've got some exciting programming lined up. And keep listening to our regular podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, subscribe and give us that all-important 5-star review.